Hey guys, Scriptuber here with another video. I apologize for the potential of a dog barking in the background. I have a window open and do not have AC, and I'm not going to purchase AC so that you don't hear the odd dog in the background. That's just the way it's going to be. And of course, I had to comment on this. I am a Canadian, and there's a lot of Canadian content in Hollywood, lots and lots and lots, whether it's Mike Myers or Jim Carrey or on and on and on, Pamela Anderson. There's been tons over the years. Former Canadian TV executive calls for women to be banned from making Star Wars. Now, he's got to be being funny because, anyways, this is just, of course, I had to comment on this. And if you've been following me for any length of time, this would definitely be something I would obviously be commenting on. Former Canadian TV executive turned YouTuber Paul Chatto called for women to be banned from producing, writing, and directing Star Wars. I think I know who this guy is. I've watched a couple of his videos. I actually think I may have interacted with him on Twitter as well a little bit. He's obviously a much bigger influencer than I am. But let's see. Yeah, this guy. Let's see what he says here. He explained, "I know that sounds harsh and that misogyny word, but the evidence is conclusive. Women should not be making Star Wars, and for good measure, you can include the soy boys like Dave Filoni and all the cucked proto-males living off the fumes of the past." I have to think at some level this is some clickbait, but a lot of people are going to take it seriously. I think a lot of people have already, and people get up in arms and freak out and mad. Oh, he's a rich women misogyny. I think honestly, in at a certain level, it's just for clicks, but whatever. And I will comment. I will give my perspective on what I think about this. So don't think I'm automatically supporting what he's saying just because I'm laughing. Now, I am willing to entertain the argument this is mostly because of all the gender delusional, talentless DEI hires and social justice warriors who have taken over Hollywood, who have no clue that the history of cinema extends prior to 2000. Which I would agree. Like, they're fighting causes that have already been fought. What was the guy, the guy who played the Chinese superhero, the Marvel guy, Shin? I never got into that comic book, but he actually came out and said, "Oh, I'm the first, Asian lead in an action movie." And I was like, what? Like, Bruce Lee didn't exist in the 80s and the 70s? Jackie Chan didn't exist in the 80s, 90s, 2000s? Chow Yun-fat during that period? Like, what? What are you talking about? So I see what he's saying there. It doesn't matter. He continued. Of course, there are women out there who could write and produce sci-fi, just look at the incredible work of DC Fontana did for Star Trek. But I'm not seeing any evidence of someone of Fontana's skills being hired either. Just look at the giant turd Michelle Paradise turned Star Trek Discovery into, or Jessica Gao, the She-Hulk debacle. Now, for my take, I mean, I watched the first 2 episodes of Discovery and was done. Just like I watched the first 2 episodes of many shows and was done. Because I'm not wasting my time. Unless I'm, covering it with Star Wars, I kind of cover it and I review it and I nitpick it and all that stuff. Because that's my first love. But yeah, it's She-Hulk not happening. Not even remotely happening at all. Next, he said, "Anyway, for me, the canary in the coal mine is their complete lack of interest in what I call gear corn, as in machinery, gadgets, weaponry. The fact that stuff breaks and needs fixing, it makes for good plot points in sci-fi adventures." They did that in the latest Acolyte. They had the broken droid that the little marsupial character put on the thing to charge, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Women, sorry for the non-PC terminology in general, are not interested in gear. What are you talking about? I just said Leslie Headland did that. She did it in the most awkward way and tried to add humor in a scene that wasn't even remotely an opportunity for funniness. But so in that respect, I guess you're right. Well, at least the gear part, they don't understand its importance in these kinds of movies and shows. I mean, if he's referring to when the Falcon needed repairs and Rey kind of just instantly fixed it. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think in the past, when the Falcon needed, and I'm talking about when she bypassed the compressor, not when they were actually working on it, but they did have that as well in The Force Awakens, so it's not as if there was just like nothing. And I also don't think this is that important. It's fairly important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It was fun. Every movie, the Falcon has some issue that needs to be fixed, which is funny and fun, and it's funny to watch Han and Chewie argue and stuff, but I don't know. I don't take that seriously. There are a few scenes featuring spaceships in the Acolyte flying. Did you see anyone piloting them? No, because they don't care about buttons or switches. They're just floating office lunchrooms. We did see Osha putting out a fire in the vacuum of space with her pip fire extinguisher. These women do not care about physics. Are there women physicists and astronomers? Yes, absolutely, but they aren't writing for Star Wars. Okay, well, if the argument is a competence argument, I would say that that's what it is. It's not a woman issue, it's a competence issue. If you look at look at Marsha Lewis, look at, you guys let me know in the comment section her name. She wrote the screenplay for Empire, it was a huge part of it. It's not as if this isn't something that they were interested in. It's that they aren't picking people based on merit, they're picking people based on nepotism and DEI. And if that's what he's saying, then I agree with him. But if he's just saying generally, then no. That dog is not shutting up. I don't know if you guys can hear it on the mic. Chato then referenced a scene from Ahsoka. There's a scene in Ahsoka with Sabine tinkering with stuff, but its only purpose was to show how girl boss she was. Well, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't go that far. If this is if his argument is worrying about gizmoids and who's fixing them, I'm not that worried about that. That's so far down the line of issues. Same for when Osha told Sol that she's doing something with the spaceship, something so that it will do something better. And who authorized her to do that anyway? I mean, again, it's not that's not the issue. The issue is it's not a character-driven narrative. It's Osha going and fixing something without anybody else around. Instead of what you had in the OT especially, and also in the prequels as well, but not as much, where it's like a team of people figuring something out. And it was always entertaining to have Han and Chewie arguing and fighting and bantering. And they loved each other, but they also, fought and stuff over the ship. And, what are you doing? And that's what's lacking. It's that they're moving the plot along without that character development, which I would argue was the number one thing with Star Wars. You can talk about the special effects and all that stuff. Yes, sure. But people that are watching those movies now, especially the originals now, they're watching them and liking them because of the characters and how they interact. I kind of compare it to in the prequels, right? So the prequels you had in Attack of the Clones, they had the whole Geonosis factory, right? And Anakin and Padme are running around, and there's not a whole lot of dialogue. There's not a whole lot of arguing and banter. It's just kind of avoid the thing because it's a video game. Whereas when they were, for instance, sort of the equivalent scene of danger in Star Wars was when they were in the trash compactor. Well, the trash compactor wasn't like this moving thing that was going to kill them all the time. Eventually it would, but it was sort of a slow death. But the fun and goodness of the scene was that the characters were yelling and interacting and arguing and figuring out solutions and all those things. Then 3PO, oh my gosh, I can hear them dying even though they were cheering. That's the difference now with Star Wars. It's changed. It's changed to sort of the generic video game, generic sci-fi, generic drama, rather than that uber character development, fun, everyone bouncing off of each other story. I think that's what's lacking. I don't think it's women, there's not enough, the women are bad and don't have women. It's just they're writing it the generic way, and it's easier to write that, and that's why they do it. They don't know how to write a fun story anymore. Everything's generic. I have my college degree in screenwriting, so now I know, and then it's just like this boring one-size-fits-all style of writing. It's not just the gear corn in the movies, he noted. Women have no interest in... Look at what James Cameron and specifically George Lucas have done to try to advance motion capture editing technology, improving the movie watching experience. Have you heard of THX? That was Lucas. it's what dudes do. Men are tinkerers. Ray could instantly expert fly the Millennium Falcon without an instructional manual because women refuse to read J.J. Abrams made that movie. He took the easy road. He took the New Hope story, twisted it around a bit, made Ray a chick, or made Luke a chick, I should say, and then made her like instantly amazing at everything. I don't know. I don't know if that was Kathleen Kennedy that told him to do that, but that's not a... J.J. Abrams is a man. He then highlighted a moment from The Acolyte. We get a fleeting moment of young Osha watching Kalnaka working on a land speeder. Did she ask why it needed fixing? No, because Leslie Headland didn't care. However, she did care about the poison that would end up killing Torben because women love murder shows and real crime podcasts. I mean, he's not totally wrong there. My wife loves them. Yeah, he's not totally wrong there. Poisoning a man is exactly what women knows other women want to see, although I'm concerned that my wife is planning something. Okay, so he's being, semi-facetious here. As far as the whole Kalnaka thing, I mean, it's just Leslie Headland doesn't have a creative bone in her body. I mean, this is a bring back Chewie moment. Hey, remember Chewie? Remember how Chewie fixed the ship? Like, this is a Jedi Wookiee, but he fixes ships. It was just a way because she couldn't think of anything else. And again, I don't think that's a male-female thing. Although, reading some of this, I think he's clickbaiting to some degree and just trying to cause controversy. Maybe this collection of male pop culture usurpers should get together and make their own Twilight in space. My daughter wrote a 600-page YA Tolkien fantasy novel for a grade 8 project. The battle sequences were short on descriptions of the fighting, but was replete with detailed descriptions of what the female soldiers were wearing that went on for pages. Women think differently, and that's a good thing when they are put in charge of IPs. And that's a good thing, except when they were put in charge of IPs created by men. I mean, he's missing the whole point of the whole Lego study that Lego did, which is the real truth, and it's not always the truth, but boys were given like superhero characters, and they pretended to be them, but then, and this is when they were trying to figure out how to make sets for girls, but then girls would be given the superhero sets and then change the superhero into what they wanted to be. So there's some truth to that, but again, it's not all women, and I just think Leslie Headland's lazy and doesn't know how to write Star Wars. Again, it's all about the character development and character building and interactions with each other, which there's so little of in The Acolyte. It's all move on to the next scene, slow drawl, very little funny anything. Everybody just kind of does stuff because the script needs it to happen. That's really what it's about. There's just no good character development in these stories. It's been going on since The Force Awakens, which is a J.J. Abrams movie. He then pointed to Harry Potter. I've made the argument that J.K. Rowling's cross-cultural success was due to the fact that she wrote Harry Potter in a masculine voice featuring a male protagonist we really wanted to root for. Again, there's so many female protagonists that are written well, that people like, the guys like. Harry Potter was filled with highly detailed gear, corn, and wands, the spells, the potions, the staggering work of imagination, and the last big IP created to date, all brought to the big screen by male screenwriters and directors. Yeah, but it was written by a female. So again, it's not about male-female, although I do think that in a situation like Star Wars, a male-dominated IP, it's probably more likely that if you based it on merit, you'd probably find more men than women, but that doesn't mean, again, J.K. Rowling, are you kidding? Do you have any idea how much Gearcorn Universal sells at their Harry Potter theme park? Star Wars sold more merch than any other franchise in history. The business has been killed off because the new movies and streaming efforts provide nothing of interest to sell. The Rey Palpatine, Rose Tico, and Vice, they just did not sell very well. Well, again, because there's no development. They're not interesting characters. Rey doesn't go through anything. She just does stuff. Rose Tico was just like a sidebar. She could have been interesting because she was a mechanic. Like you're talking about Gearcorn. She was a mechanic, and this dog will not shut up. And could have been a really cool character, but they just decided to relegate her to some dumb side story and billionaires are bad and they oppress the animals. That's on Rian Johnson, who's a guy. Obi-Wan Kenobi helmed by director Deborah Chow was laughable. Yes, that was horrible. It was created by Joby Harold, but we heard rumors that it was crushed by Kathleen Kennedy's pathological meddling, our favorite female Death Star. And I mean, he's not wrong in the sense that, like, Kathleen Kennedy is sort of the arbiter of all these dumb things. But, again, I don't think it's because she's female. I think it's because she's insecure. And she said how much she likes to go to parties and be there and be in the spotlight. So it's not really about the work. It's about her, right? That's ultimately what you have is you have selfish people, right? Ryan Johnson's selfish. Kathleen Kennedy's selfish. Leslie Headland's selfish and then encouraged by Kathleen Kennedy to be selfish and write a story about herself in The Acolyte. Make it about her, not the fans, not Star Wars. That's the issue. It's selfishness. Let me finish off by saying there's way more to a successful show or movie than just gear corn in it, although no one would argue that it wasn't a huge part of Iron Man. The problem with the Acolyte, Kenobi, Ahsoka, Boba Fett go far beyond not having an appreciation for technology and how it should be integrated. Thank you, because that's really that's down the list into productions that purport to be sci-fi in nature. These were badly written shows, all overseen by the utter incompetence of Kathleen Kennedy. One can make the argument that Kennedy and her fixation with turning the Star Wars boy brand into a girl brand has actually ruined things for women in front of and behind the camera. I don't see why it should. Again, it should just be based on competence. If you're sucky, then you shouldn't be there. But she picked Shinoy to direct the Rey movie because Shinoy's a DEI hire and is her friend. So that's the problem. It's just lack of competence. To that point, he questioned, what's the status of that Rey movie directed by Shinoy? That being said, Jennifer Salke isn't doing Amazon any favors, and Anne Sarnoff had to be bum rushed out of Warner's. I don't know enough about that to even comment. Other than being women, the common thread is their social activism. That's the issue. A big part of the issue. We all know how well that's going. I'm fairly certain that social activism wasn't on the mind of Marsha Lucas when she edited the first 3 good Star Wars movies. Exactly. And just to prove to you that I'm not a complete asshat, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon is worse than The Acolyte. It's bad. I haven't even watched part 2. I reviewed part 1, and I did a series of videos leading up to it. It was so bad, I'm not watching anymore. That's where I draw my line in the sand. The only one I keep watching is Star Wars just because I just have to. It's just ingrained in me. I look forward to the comments of women in the business who can't afford work because of DEI, because you're just not the right kind of woman. Yes, exactly. It's all about diversity of immutable traits, not thought, as I've said many times. Kathleen Kennedy made it abundantly clear that one of her main goals was to inject feminism into Star Wars and would be doing it on all levels, from employees working on Star Wars to the stories and characters Lucasfilm would be telling. In an interview with Fortune's magazine, I think the interesting path we've had in this conversation that took place around consumer products, because there were a lot of companies that were in place who frankly didn't initially feel that Star Wars was for girls. Now, it hasn't been traditionally, specifically for girls. There were some girls that liked it, but it was a male-dominated brand. And here's the thing that she's leaving out. Consumer spending is way up there in women now. So it's flipped from, the 70s, and now it's like 80% of consumer spending is women. However, that doesn't mean you want to turn everything into something for girls, especially something that's established. If you want to make a new brand, a new IP, a new television show, movie, whatever, that was geared towards girls that you started from scratch, that's one thing. But when you already have an established male-dominated brand, just keep rolling, baby. But she's just, I don't know, I guess she thought, use what George Lucas built to change it to what I want, which again, is such a stupid strategy. And when you have a company situation where between Lucasfilm and Disney, we were all looking at this situation saying, no, with Star Wars, we have to change this. We have to make sure that we create products that are, in a sense, appealing to both boys and girls. What's wrong with that? Well, now it's not appealing to anybody, though, because you picked on nepotism and you picked people based not on merit. And so if that was your plan, that's okay, but now nobody likes it. Except for people that are on the sort of DEI social justice warrior train, which is not that many people, and even that number is fading now because they're seeing what it's doing to culture. The fact that the company is bought by Walt Disney has been amazing because they very much support the fact that we were trying to grow in the workforce a number of women in executive positions and in all positions inside the company, and with the movies that we are making and with the protagonists that we are putting in stories. So I get a huge amount of support with that. Yeah. Yep. Ultimately, you still are run by men. And that's the funny thing. Ultimately, these women that are thinking they're like breaking the glass ceiling and like, we're making Star Wars for chicks, they're still doing it at the allowance of men, of billionaire businesses that own all the stocks in Disney, BlackRock, and others. So it's all fake, guys. This whole thing is fake. And I don't think people are falling for it. I don't think girls are falling for it. I don't think girls are rushing to go watch Star Wars. If they were, they'd be making more money. 50% of our executive team are women, and 6 of the 8 people in my story group are women. 6 out of the 8. That's wild to me. And again, that's not equality, is it? 6 out of 8. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be surprised that we're making Star Wars movies and the majority of the people involved in the development of those stories are women. Again, competency is key. You're hiring your buddies and then saying that you're like, breaking through and women's lib and all this. And it's like, no, I'm just basically you're hiring your friends. That doesn't like just because they're women doesn't mean they know what they're doing. They're just your buddies. And I think it's making a huge difference in the stories that we're trying to tell. It is. It's making them bad because instead of hiring competent women, you're hiring your buddies. Where's Bryce Dallas Howard? Where's she? She hasn't even been considered. You're hiring all your friends and then pretending like you're, doing some sort of social justice warrior nonsense when it's literally your friends. Filoni, yeah, he wants more women in. If you haven't seen this video, you've been living under a rock. Try to create more female characters that can represent so many things. Blah, 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 blah. He's on the train. He's getting paid. Of course he's going to do that. You don't poop or eat. I also want to get these men that are in this privileged position to tell these stories right now to change their dynamic and to start looking at stories and characters to just make great, interesting characters and stop doing the same thing over and over. You are doing the same thing over and over again. We made a different villain that's not a Sith because even though he has a red lightsaber and does everything Sith do and hunts Jedi and kills them, he's not a Sith. He isn't because we said he's not because we're creative. Like, you're doing the same thing over and over yourself, bro. And the stuff that you're adding is cheese. There's other things you could add. It's not like you have to have another galaxy. You chose to do that. It's not like you have to have Ahsoka still alive. You chose to do that. You could have done something else that's different. These guys just pat their own back and all day. It's nuts. They all think they're so wonderful and they're garbage. I'm not going into Filoni, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so what it comes down to is these people are all frauds, whether they're pretending they're helping women when they're just hiring their buddies, whether they think they're being trendy by hiring somebody like Leslie Headland, whose entire background is like sex-related stuff and has nothing to do with Star Wars, or, Dave Filoni, basically selling out to follow what Kathleen Kennedy wants, even though she's just pretending to care about women, and the only women she cares about are her buddies that are unqualified. It's just a big joke. And the joke of it is they think that you, as a female out there, are going to buy into it. That's what they think. They think you're actually going to buy that they actually give a crap about you. And they don't. They care about themselves. They care about themselves and making themselves look good and pretending like they're helping everybody when they're not. Because there's plenty of competent women that they don't hire. They only hire based on friendship and nepotism. It's a total joke. Having said that, there are plenty of good women out there. I don't think no women should be in Star Wars. I don't think she should be banned. And I think he's being semi-facetious, obviously. But the type of women they are hiring, including Kathleen Kennedy, should probably be banned. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like, subscribe. Always helps the channel. Feel free to check out anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.